think is the secret sauce here, which is how we make the owner feel like they are successful. Okay. And gosh, does this feel like a really big ego boost for a lot of the owners in the room? But really, what it is you guys being so incredibly amazing at your job that the whole clinic is more successful, which is ultimately what we really want to do. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a secret. When it comes to how our practice runs here in Toronto, my practitioners are super talented. They create incredible treatment plans. The true superheroes of our clinic are our admin team. From the very first touch point, you guys set the tone for how people come to us. You are the gatekeepers of who gets in the practice, who meets the needs. Our practitioners can't be successful if the wrong people are coming into the practice. Our practitioners can't be successful if we haven't clearly articulated our policies and procedures and our expectations. And let's face it, sometimes our practitioners, and admittedly, sometimes our clinic owners hide behind you guys when that client that we know is going to be difficult comes in and you guys are actually charged with how you manage them. So I'm under no illusion here. Our admin team literally saves me on a daily basis. What you guys do is hard and what you guys do is important. If we didn't have incredible people as the face of our clinic, we wouldn't get any further than that, right? So everything I'm going to teach here is truthfully, it's going to make your clinic or your clinic owner feel like they are more successful, but it's also going to make you more successful because I want you to be more efficient at your job. I recognize how hard your position is. I see the 5 million balls that you guys are juggling, and the aim here is to make that easier for you. Okay. One of the things that I also want to acknowledge is you guys hold the keys quite literally to so many systems in the clinic. We had an incident a while ago where our clinic manager was away in Disney World and I had to go back and do some sleuthing for somebody. And I literally didn't know half my passwords. I couldn't get into the systems because they were so well built and the team was so good at running them. So I'm also going to show you the through thread of how we can also make everybody share in that responsibility too. So I recently had the great opportunity of listening to Adrienne Dorison speak. For anybody who is into reading books on business and developing them, she's recently written a book called Clockwork, which I really, really enjoyed. It's around a lot of the procedural and logistic things of a clinic and really how to make sure that the clinic is running smoothly. And they identified 4 Ds that need to happen in a successful clinic. And what's really interesting about this is they are inversely proportional to what your clinic owner needs to be doing. So let's just start off with these. So in a successful clinic, most of what is driving revenue, most of what is making impact is doing, right? Those are the things that we do on a regular basis. It's the communication with our clients, it's booking them in, it's making sure they have great treatment. It makes sure that we're doing beautiful follow-up so our clients are crystal clear on what is expected of them. It's making sure that we have retention. It makes sure that we are selling them the right products. It makes sure that we are getting them in the right programs and we're scheduling them with the right people. So when they actually looked at teams that are highly successful, those teams had 80% of their time and energy focused on things that generate revenue for the clinic. Now, they had 2% or actually 10% on deciding. So this is when these situations come up and you have to make a critical decision on who handles it, who manages it, what the policy is going to be. The interesting thing about deciding, because you're probably looking at this and saying, well, Mel, you've got deciding and delegating. They're two very similar things. The thing about a decision is if I'm deciding, if I make the decision as the clinic owner, and I hand it over to Annie. I'm just going to say Annie because she's the first person I see on my screen. If I've made that decision, I still own the outcome of that, right? I haven't fully empowered Annie to do that. I'm like, hey, Annie, can you do this? Or can we start to do things this way? So I own the responsibility that goes with it, which means when Annie doesn't know what to do, or Annie wasn't given enough information by me, or she doesn't have the information to do that, that ultimately comes back to me. The nuance between deciding and delegating is when I delegate something, that delegating transfers the ownership over to Annie because now this is Annie's project. I am fully trusting her with the ability to run with this because I know that she's going to be responsible for the outcome and she's going to do an incredible job. And the last thing that we always need to be doing, especially as things change globally and economically, is we always need to be designing. I put in the comments earlier when we were talking about SOPs that it's okay for things to be outdated. The things that served us when we were tiny clinics of 3 and 5 people often don't work when we're a clinic of 10 or 12 people. So, what we always need to be doing is designing, like, we're designing the best client experience. We're designing the program that meets the need. We're designing by self improving and implementing the newest technology. And the ratio at which the most successful clinics do that is they spend about 10% of their time designing, about 2% of their time delegating, about 8% deciding, and 80% doing. Now, here's the thing. For the owner to really be the visionary and move the clinic and the brand forward, they actually need to be doing the exact opposite. They need to spend 80% of their time in design mode, right? One of the things I did when I stepped away from patient practice was I recognized that my practitioners and my admin team were now my clients. And I was trying to design systems on how we could elevate them and how we could support them and what the next best thing is. And I literally couldn't do that if I was spending 80% of my time in doing. Okay. We want to see our clinic owners actually spending more time delegating. And remember that nuance. Delegating means that I am giving you full responsibility of the decision, which also means I need to train you properly. I need to sit down and have a brainstorming or problem solving conversation with you that says, like, how do we do this? What is the outcome we need? What are the specifics of it? Because we actually want to spend less time in decision mode. We know successful owners make decisions really quickly and they make them because they have all the information they need at hand. But developing or delegating is actually a much more powerful tool for you guys. Meghan talked earlier about, are your skills fully utilized? And I'm going to guess, and maybe throw your hand up if this is the case, and this is not a judgment, but how many of you feel like you have more skills to offer that aren't being used or developed on a daily basis? It could be that you've had a past job that's given you expertise in something, and you're like, hey, I'm looking at it from this angle, and this could be really cool if we did this. Or it could be like, I've got some training, some schooling in this, and I know if we applied this, I'm not seeing a ton of hands, but maybe I'm only seeing what's on my screen. And I'm going to guess that there are a few of you holding back here that do have some skills that could be better utilized. And to be honest, as a clinic owner, it's my dream to have people who are like, I've got this. I actually have the know-how and the skills to do this. Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Andrea put her hand up. One person who is honestly leaning into her skill development. But I think, you know what? I would love for people to be like, I've got this. Let me run with this. I want to take ownership of this. I want to take responsibility of it because guess what? I'm going to crush it. And I want more people doing that. Okay. And actually, the less, I'm going to try and talk again. The least useful thing I could be doing is doing, right? I don't get a lot of the things done that need to support the clinic and support the brand if I'm constantly sticking my nose in every other person's business. I want to have a team that's super clear on what their role is, who are rock stars in doing that, and I get my nose out of their business. There's a reason I'm working from my home office today instead of clinic. Because when I work from clinic, inevitably, there's like 5 million knocks at the door. Hey, what do you think I should do about this? Hey, this client came in and this is the problem. What should our policy be about this? Any idea what happens when I sit there and get interrupted 5 million times a day? I bet most of you are thinking I'm going to say that I don't get my work done. What's really happening is I am not empowering you guys to step into your full authority of the job that I've given you because I take that decision-making ability away from you, right? If you are awesome at your job and your skills are being fully utilized, the minute I step in as an owner and try and micromanage everything, I'm taking that authority away from you. And what I'm not doing is spending my time developing the brand of our clinic, bringing us in new business, innovating so we can be more efficient, investing back into the business. What I want to do is really have that inverse relationship. So sometimes removing me from the picture is the best thing we can do for our business and the best thing we can do to empower our team. So, what does doing look like? Okay, because I think sometimes we get our job description with our capabilities a little bit mixed up. And for most of you here, what I'm seeing as you respond to things in the chat is you're not identifying like, I'm answering the phones. I'm sure you are still answering the phones. I still answer the phones. But what you're really articulating to me today is you guys have leadership roles, right? You are making critical decisions around finances. You're trying to problem solve better ways to communicate. So doing is a lot more than you think it is. It's more than just the task specific things that we're putting in front of you. You guys are actually brand ambassadors for your clinics. You're the first person somebody talks to. You're the first person that they problem solve with. You're the first person who articulates the incredible things that the clinic can do for that person's pain point or problem. You're also masters of sales. You don't know it, but every conversation you have, or probably more appropriately, every relationship that you nurture is a sales conversation. I heard a lot of you say when you were talking about your superpower that you have bubbly personalities or you know clients' names and you really go out of the way to make sure they specifically hear that and they feel held and they feel like they're in a warm, inviting space. You probably think of that as customer service, but what you're actually doing every time you take that little extra piece and go a bit further is you are creating lifelong relationships and selling those people into the practice. Okay. You are also masters of the schedule, right? You guys know how hard it can be to manage that. It can be like the wildest game of Tetris where you've got, clients on one side who really desperately need to get in, practitioners on the other side who are saying, I can't do this, I need to do this. So you guys are also managing relationships when you're managing that schedule. You're optimizing it. You're making sure that you're doing a great job there. You're also doing training and recruitment. How many of you have a role in onboarding other members of your admin team? Maybe drop it in the chat for me. I'm going to guess at some point somebody has shadowed you. Yeah, there are lots of you who are doing this. So you are leaders in the training and recruitment phase, right? You are really selling people on why it's an incredible place to work and why you want these people as part of the culture of your clinic. You are a communication strategist. I use the word strategist not lightly. People have said in the chat, how hard it is to actually get people to read their emails, get people to actually find things on that Slack channel. So you guys do spend a lot of your time. You're a marketing representative, you're a financial specialist, you're a health data custodian, you're an inventory manager, and you're probably a customer service representative. So this is a lot of stuff that falls in that doing that we want you to be really efficient at, but we also want you to have full authority in doing it so you can do your job really, really well. Okay. So I want to tell you guys a bit of a story here because I alluded to that sometimes the clinic owner is the problem. And I will openly say without ego, and one of the things that I have really tried to do as a clinic owner, we have a policy in my clinic that I hope nobody's going to be offended if I swear here, but everybody on my team is allowed to call me on my bullshit. Okay. Everybody is allowed to, as long as it goes to a greater good, right? So if I'm not doing something or making a decision that is not in service of our team, providing incredible care to our clients, I expect that somebody's going to be like, hey, Mel, that was a crappy decision. Or you are not communicating this to us clearly, so we can't do our jobs. And the Swiffer situation was a perfect example of that. So I was away in Florida in January. And I said to my team, I'm there on a consulting basis. My time is not my own. Somebody else is paying for my time. So from like 7 a.m. in the morning till probably 8 or 9 a.m. p.m., I'm going to be really hard to get in touch with. But we went over everything ahead of time. I trust my team implicitly. So I was kind of in my politest way saying, like, if you need something, I'm not available for you guys. But you guys are great. You don't need me. And on the second day, I don't know where everybody is, but here in Toronto, it's snowy, it's mucky, there's salt. Keeping the presentation of our front reception area is kind of like a part-time job right now. Our team is literally Swiffering about every third client just to make sure it's A, safe, and B, it doesn't look terrible. So I start getting these messages like, hey Mel, we need some Swiffer solution. And I was like, guys, go to the store, buy the Swiffer solution. Like, what do you want me to do about it in Florida? And then they're like, oh, and now that you've actually just told us to do that, we actually need the Swiffer pads. And here I was getting a little bit annoyed, clinic owner ego jumping in. I'll fully openly admit that. Being like, I told them that I was not reachable. Somebody else is paying for my time. The last thing I can do is solve a Swiffer problem. But what my team was doing was they were articulating to me that if we wanted to have incredible client service, if we wanted to be safe and not be sued because somebody slipped and fell coming in the door, they needed this piece. And in my moment of frustration, what really dawned on me was they would have done those pieces, but what I didn't do is I didn't give them the permission and access they needed to do this independently of me. What they needed was my credit card or my buying account on file that they could access. And they had tried to get to that point. And when they did, they needed my sign off on it. So what I hadn't done is fully given them a permission to actually free me up to go present, be part of this, and really take our clinic to the next level. Okay. So often there are going to be times where your clinic owner is actually the bottleneck. And this is something I want you guys to think about as we move into an afternoon where we're going to be talking about policies, procedures, things like that. How many of you guys can think of an instance where you haven't been able to fully execute on your job because there's been that missing piece of the puzzle? Maybe it was a piece of information that you didn't have to be able to make a good decision. Maybe it was access to something. Maybe it was training or acumen. Like you couldn't do this because you actually have not been trained on this particular situation. Or maybe it was you just needed the authority to step in and do that. Drop in the chat and we can be anonymous about this. You don't need to actually say what it was, but let me know if that's ever become a problem. Yeah. And I think the honest truth of this sometimes isn't, that we want to withhold information or things like that. It's just that as clinics grow and develop, the truth of the matter is there's some scenarios that we haven't run into yet. Sometimes we are building the plane while we are midair. And while that feels like scary territory to be in, what it is it's a learning and growth opportunity for us all the time. When we run into these bottlenecks, yes, they're frustrating, but they're great opportunities for us to really develop more authority and really take our clinic to new levels of efficiency. So as we move into this afternoon's discussion and we think about those instances where potentially we're bottlenecked from doing our job really well, I want to give you guys a reframe. Okay. So who here is a fan of Brene Brown? Give me a hands up, give me an emoji, something. Yes, no, maybe so. We have a quiet room here today. If you haven't, and if you are a leader in any capacity, which I'm going to challenge you all to identify yourselves as, because if you are showing up for your clinic as the face of your clinic, you are 100% a leader. You are leading in this. And Brene has written a great, wonderful book called Dare to Lead. Has anybody else read that? Yeah. Yeah. Some people are saying they love her. Yeah, fantastic. So in Dare to Lead, Brene talks about this concept of painting it done with her team. And this is something I want you guys to take away for decision making and delegating purposes down the road. It's really hard to fulfill a task if you don't know what the outcome is that we're after. But I think, in those moments of building the plane as we're flying it, often we're like, hey, can you do this? hey, can you do that? And what we haven't really done is identify all the little pieces that go along with that. So if that owner really wants to step into that position of dreaming and designing, we need to have systems in place that allow you guys to be more responsible for the doing and the delegating. Okay. And painting it done is a great way to do that. So what I'm going to have you do from here on in is whenever there's something assigned to you, whether it being a task, a project, something along those lines, and people actually identified in the chat, Asana is a great way to do this. So if you don't have a project management or task management system, I highly recommend you do this. We would be lost without it. And what it really does is it helps me provide our team with the information that they need to do their jobs really well. So I don't become the bottleneck. So a great instance of this would be me saying, hey guys, I'm away in Florida. And I need you to make sure that that front reception area stays really presentable and really safe for our clients. That's not painting it done. Painting it done is, in order for this to be done, we need to make sure that we're well stocked on all of these items. Here's the frequency that we probably need to have it done. Here's the permission that I need to give you guys, both from a buying and access, so that you can just go in and buy the supplies you need. Here's the outcome that needs to happen. Here's the timeline, and here's who's in ownership of it. A great example of this is, I want to say it's the Ritz-Carlton. Okay. Now, I understand in this example that this is a scale far bigger than most of us are dealing with, but the Ritz-Carlton gives every single employee a budget of $1,500 for decision making. What the Ritz-Carlton understands is that if the bellhop runs into a problem with somebody's car and they need to say, hold on, I need to go ask my manager, we need to figure this out, we need to do something else, that client is already kind of pissed off by the time they come back with the solution. If that bellhop can say, no problem, here's access to one of our cars for the day, and they know the expense is under $1,500, you know what they've done? They have created an incredible experience for that client. Anybody have a guess at what the average spend is on a client at the Ritz-Carlton? Lifetime spend. Throw it in the chat. Let me know what your guesses are. Okay, I'll help you. Oh, we got one here. Under $1,000, 300. The average lifetime spend of a client at the Ritz-Carlton is $30,000 to $40,000. $30,000 to $40,000. If you can solve a problem for that client for $1,500 and turn them into a client that pays $30,000 to $40,000 in your services, what an incredible jump in customer service. But what the Ritz-Carlton has done is given them the information of what they can and can't do. So they are incredibly clear on it. They've got a decision-making chart of yes, you can do this. No, you can't do that. They have permission. They know exactly what their spend is for that. They know that the outcome that they're after is incredibly satisfied clients. They know the timeline is immediate. If you can solve a problem immediately, amazing. And in doing this, what they do is they give them authority and ownership over their job, right? I use that example of like every time my team has to come back and ask me a question, I take away their authority. And this is really important in patient-facing situations because the minute our admin team says, oh, I have to ask my manager, or I have to do this, you cause a delay, which causes client frustration. And number one, it doesn't show you as being the authority in your role. Painting it done allows you to have crystal clarity in doing this, and it allows you to step into those positions of doing, which ultimately is going to free your owner up so they can be designing. Any questions around this process? Our job as admin or gatekeepers of the business is to really enhance the client experience and be the thread through everything that happens from practitioner to client to follow up to make sure things happen really efficiently. If you guys are doing a great job of asking for this, wait, hold on, Mel. What information do I need in order to keep the front area clean? What information do I need or what permission do I need to be able to do this? what you're doing is you're presenting yourself as a really forward-thinking individual who's taking initiative so that I'm not being disrupted from what I'm doing, which is really forwarding the brand of the clinic. Carly, I can't stop thinking about the Swiffer. Would you not have just reimbursed them? Yes, I 100% would have reimbursed them. I think what happened on that particular day, and yes, they do know that. But what maybe they needed was the permission to know, guys, you don't need to ask me to go do that. And actually, from that example, we now have given everybody a budget of the clinic of if you need to solve a problem and I'm not there, here's your budget. Here is access to financial funds to do that. But you were absolutely right. 100%. They would have been reimbursed. But in that moment, they didn't know they had the permission to do that. I would have told you 100 times over, of course I would have reimbursed you. But then again, like this is where the communication piece comes in. So it's really important that we are painting it done from that aspect. Guys, any question on this? Any question on how we step into the doing? Anything along those lines? Okay. Is there one part of your job, and this is where I'm going to give you a couple minutes here. I want you to start to think about what pieces are missing from this equation. Is it permission? Is it information? Is there some place where you're getting bottlenecked in your job? And I'm going to have you just take 2 or 3 minutes to start to write these things down so they're fresh of mind. Okay? Because when you go back to your clinic owners tomorrow, later on today, I want you to be able to say, man, I could make your life so much easier if I just had permission to do this. Or I could help the clinic run so much smoother if I had a better understanding of how to do this. So I'm going to ask you guys to take 2 minutes and actually write down 3 to 5 ideas. And if anybody is game, because I'm going to guess when we start to circulate it, it's going to jog a few memories here of people being like, yeah, you're right. If I could do this, I would be so much more efficient at my job. I'll get maybe a couple people to share. Once you've got your 3 to 5, if there's one that really sticks out for you that is like, this would make my life infinitely easier, I would love you to pop your hand up. Because just like Carly was like, well, why didn't you just reimburse them? Like maybe somebody else is like, oh God, yeah, that would make my life so much easier too. So I want to share a couple. Okay. Does anybody have one they want to share? A permission, an access, a piece of information. Awesome. Andrea, I'll get you to unmute yourself and share.
I am new to working in a medical clinic setting. I've got a background in business administration, but clinic work is new to me. And the clinic I work with, she is specializes in gut health. So my biggest thing is what I can and can't say when patients call and ask. It's like she does a lot of work with gut health and parasites and leading edge of stuff that's still not necessarily considered mainstream. And that's where I get bottlenecked a lot. So I can't respond to emails right away or phone calls because I got to go talk to her, especially if she's with patients. It could be like a day or two until I can get back to a patient.
Yeah, and that really impacts the client journey. And I think, gosh, I am so proud of our admin team and how much they've learned when they don't have a medical background, because especially when you have to learn somebody's specialty and then what you can and can't share within the context of confidentiality and HIPAA compliancy. Anybody else have a great system of what they're using to help manage information and be informed on those cases? I know you guys all deal with incredible stuff, but sometimes it's sensitive and sometimes you have to make sure we're protecting the confidentiality, and we have to also stay within our scope, right? Yeah. Nobody has a share on this? I'm gonna say Andrew. Oh, Alexandra, were you putting your hand up? Amazing. Jump in.
We often, if someone's asking like very pointed and specific questions that we are really unsure of if we can answer, we always kind of defer back to our free 15-minute consult with the ND. So that's something that we can book in same day, same week for a patient, and it puts the questions on the naturopath, who has much more insight into that than we do as front desk staff. And I think that they appreciate that because then they are able to field those questions rather than us say something that isn't correct or isn't compliant with Kono or whoever their governing body is.
Yeah. Thanks, Alexandra. I think that's a really great thing. One thing I also encourage our admin team to do is if they're consistently getting the same question all the time, I ask them to write that down. And that would actually be an instance where we might come up with an SOP or a procedure or a decision-making tree on what they can or can't share. And often we can give people basic education that they could find on the internet or they could find elsewhere, but obviously we can't do anything specific to them. So if you notice that you're constantly getting the same question, that might be a great opportunity to go to your owner and be like, hey, I need an SOP on this because I'm not sure how to manage it. And again, if we talk about that framework of how we have the conversation to have it in the best light for the owner, it's I don't want to A, interrupt you 5 million times in a day, and B, I don't want to make a client wait 2 days. That's just crummy for business. So how can we do that? Yeah, Mabel's also added in the chat. They have a manual of frequently asked, or I'm going to assume that's frequently asked questions of whether they can. Oh, sorry. Mabel, do you want to expand on that a little bit? And then maybe I'll just get Carly to jump in and share how she uses Asana.
Oh,
Mabel?
hi. Um,
Hi.
we do have since I started with the clinic, I'm the only one in the clinic, but besides my my doctor, my practitioner, my doctor. So I usually gather most of the questions from the patients so that at the end of the day, we gather like we have an FYIs, so I can easily right now I can easily answer questions for the in behalf of the doctor, so we don't want to wait like 24 hours to 48 hours to answer the patient. So that's how it started.
Awesome. Another great thing that we've also done in our clinic recently is we've put a chat bot onto our website. And the chatbot can resource anything from our blogs, from our patient practitioner bios, any of that stuff. So anything that is public information, the chatbot can actually provide an answer to. And that's been really helpful in decreasing the amount of questions that our admin team needs to ask. But if it asks a question we don't know, the chatbot will also say, hey, that is something that you need to discuss with your doctor. How would you like to set that up? Right? So there's other systems we can do to leverage your time a little bit better. And one more thing here, Carly, are you around? Can you pop onto how you guys use Asana for getting patient answers? Because I think that could be a really
Yeah.
interesting.
Um, so a lot of the time we use Practice Better. So a lot of the patients will message me asking for like clarification on a care plan that they've been given. So what I do is I use Asana to send that question to the doctor if I don't have the answer for it. And then she's able to just reply to me on Asana and I can relay that information to the patient if I can't find it in their chart notes or in their care plan that they've been given. That way it's not directed right to the doctor. I can kind of be the middle person and just relay that information. And when it's in Asana, it's a lot quicker than sending an email to her to try to get an answer that way as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
No
Does
problem.
anybody else have an example of something that is bottlenecking them in their job or something that they might want to go back and say, hey, I need more information on this, or I need permission, access, or a clearer outcome? Anybody else have something key they wrote down? Because getting clear about these things, guys, and having these conversations are actually going to make your job easier. Carly just outlined a really easy process that makes the decision making a whole lot easier. And when we're in a position of decision fatigue, it's actually harder to do our jobs, right? When we have to think of like all the things, often what happens, we just kind of turtle or a task doesn't happen. So the clearer we can get on this, you are also protecting the owner's boundaries, all of those things. They're going to be really appreciative of that. Anybody else? Ruby, I'm going to pick on you just because you are in the screen and I have a beautiful background that you're behind. Did you have anything that you wrote down that's something that you might want to share? And if not, that's okay too.
Oh, every every questions that I encounter that I don't know how to respond with, or I don't know how to respond to, I always send those questions through Slack. And yeah, it's usually the turnaround time is faster. And
Awesome.
yeah, so sorry. To add to that is that all the questions that are kept on coming back, I usually put them into a document so that when it arises the next time, I know how to respond to it.
Amazing. That is something that we used in our clinic too for questions that we get consistently, where we can give a generalized answer. We actually have a template of canned email responses to go back to them, right? And it's a lot easier to cut and paste something that has already been pre-approved by the team and just personalize it with the name than it is to have to think about it, wait for a response on it. So again, it goes back to like, what systems can we have in place? We'll talk about systems later, but what systems can we have in place that make your job a lot easier? And some of them require this information and data gathering up front. But man, if you can go into your inbox and have a system of templates that's like, client needs to know X about gut health protocol. Great. The doctor gives a standard protocol. Here's the response. Boom. So much easier. You've saved a ton of time. It doesn't require multiple interactions with people on your team who might have different schedules. And the client is really thrilled about the response time that they got back. So amazing. Thank you. Okay. Awesome. Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but my schedule says that we are right on time for a bit of a lunch break. We have given you guys a lot of information this morning, and this afternoon we're going to get into more actionable strategies. But in order to do that, your brains need to be fed and your bodies need to be moved. So we will see you back here at 12:40.